What's going on today, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at another Pagani Design watch. This is their PD-1717. Now, we've reviewed a few Paganis on this channel, and they definitely offer a lot of specs for your money, but some of them offer more value than others, and quality control definitely isn't one of their strong points, or at least it hasn't been in the past. So let's see if this one's worth taking a closer look at. Before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Comment down below that you subscribed, and I'll do my best to reply to all those comments. But without any further ado, guys, let's go ahead, cue that intro, dive down, and get into the review. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we get in the box. You got your typical Pagani Design box, very simple but cost effective, which is good. You get a NATO strap, Bond style NATO strap with this, and quality actually looks pretty decent. So you can see you have that seat belt material, and it's a little stiff. It's definitely not very high quality, but nice keepers on there. Everything's well finished, so definitely not a bad extra to get. So we'll just go ahead and push that off to the side for now. I've already sized this to my 7.5-inch wrist, so I've taken out 3 links. And that's all you get. So we'll start off with dimensions. 38mm case size. It has 20mm lug width. It's 13mm thick. And it's 45.5 lug to lug. So a nice, small, compact watch. It wears really well, and you'll see that later. So the dial, it has a fully printed dial. And you can see everything is printed, including the Pagani Design logo, and I like how they didn't add the Pagani Design writing on there. They just have the logo. It looks a lot better and a lot cleaner that way. And then you have 200 meters and automatic written down below. 20 bar - 200 meters. Around the dial, you can see there's a chapter ring. Hopefully you can see that. It's a very thin chapter ring, but looks very nice, and there's a nice polished ring on the inside of the chapter ring that sits perfectly right alongside those little diamonds in the dial. So you see the little diamond markers. Right in between each of those is a polished strip, and it just really looks nice. It's definitely a very well done dial. It's simple, but it's well done. The hands, you're looking at just classic fence post hands, and then the second hand has a red tip with some lume applied. Now the problem with the hands, and they did fix this for the version 2, is they aren't long enough. If you can see, the second hand isn't going all the way to the minute track, and the minute hand is not going all the way to the minute track. Also, the hour hand looks pretty short as well. So definitely not the correct size hands for this dial, but they did improve that. So the version 2, you're gonna see normal size hands, and that's the link that I'll be leaving for you. So if you do like the design of this watch, just know that obviously they fixed that problem. The crystal is a single domed sapphire crystal. I have tested it. It is definitely sapphire. Although the single dome, because of the fact that there is no anti-reflective coating on this crystal, it reflects light a lot. And you're going to notice that it's not the most legible watch out in sunlight. So definitely just keep that in mind. I like the way that the single dome adds a nice amount of distortion. I think it looks really cool. Sort of gives it a little bit of a vintage look, but as far as legibility, it's not great. So definitely keep that in mind if you're considering this. The price for this watch is $118. That's for the version 2. I don't believe you can buy this version 1 anymore, but you really wouldn't want to anyway, because they've only made improvements on the new one. They haven't taken anything away from the watch itself. So $118 on AliExpress. Of course, I will leave a link for that below. And that's a pretty good price for this. I have to say, we'll get into everything else about the watch, but yeah, for what you're getting here, I think $118 is more than fair. The bezel, you have a nice high polished bezel, and it's brushed around this lower section. So, does a nice job breaking up the case. Definitely looks pretty good. No complaints there. And the finishing is pretty good on this, and we'll get more into that later. The crown is a screw down crown, 200 meters water resistance, so I have no reason to believe that it couldn't do that. And once you unscrew the crown, the first position, you're gonna feel a little pop. That first position, you can wind the movement, because this is a hand winding movement. The second position is a ghost date position, and you can feel the date wheel turning over. So they did not remove the date wheel. The last position hacks the movement, and you can set the time. Push that back in, and we'll go ahead and screw that back in. The bracelet, oh, and I'm sorry, the crown is signed with the Pagani logo, which is nice. Definitely nice to see. The bracelet is fully 316L stainless steel, as well as the case, the crown, the case back. Everything on this watch, as far as the materials, are 316L stainless steel. This is a 5-link bracelet. Even though it has the appearance of a 7-link bracelet, those polished fake links on the inside, or on the outer part of the center links, those are all integrated into that link. It's just one link. But if you look at, let me give you an example. So if we look here, you can see that these links here are actually separate. This thin link here, this polished link, is separate. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links in this bracelet, which is nice to see. So they didn't cheap out too much on the bracelet, but what I will say is it just doesn't feel that great. It feels a little cheap. It almost has the feeling of being a little hollow inside. And maybe it's just me, but it's a little rattly. Hopefully you can hear that. And I think that may have to do with the clasp as well, and I'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, I just feel like they could have done a little bit better with this bracelet. It doesn't have screw links, it just has push pins. So that's definitely a cost-cutting measure. And it seems like the bracelet is maybe a little thinner than it could be. They could have made this a little bit thicker, and maybe that would have added to the feeling of quality. And then when we look at the clasp here, you have your basic, it is milled, but it's a very basic milled clasp. I got a clasp similar to this for my Casio, and it was $6. So they're definitely not spending much money on these clasps. But it is signed with the Pagani Design logo, and it definitely functions well. But it just does, it's a little rattly, and it doesn't feel super high quality. But it's not a terrible clasp by any means. Moving on to the case back. You have a semi-sterile case back, which is unlike Pagani. Usually they'll either have an exhibition case back, or they'll have some sort of a design on there. And this is just pretty plain, which, yeah, I could do with some type of design on there. I think that would have looked good. But looks like they're cutting costs in some different areas here. The movement is the Seiko NH35. Now, we all know about the Seiko NH35 at this point, and if you don't, it's a fantastic movement for a watch in this price range. It beats at 21,600 beats per hour. It's 24 joules, hacks and hand winds. It has an accuracy rating of -20 to +40 seconds per day. It's well proven, reliable, workhorse movement. And as far as the accuracy goes, as long as these movements are regulated properly, you can get anywhere in that -10 to +10 seconds per day. And the majority of the ones that I've had have been within that accuracy range. So I think it just depends on who's regulating these movements, but a lot of these companies from AliExpress are actually regulating them, and they're running pretty accurate. So definitely keep that in mind. The NH35 is a great movement for this price point. You really can't say anything bad about it. The fit and finish on this watch is actually really good. The case especially is just really well done. The brushing is very fine, looks great. You have a nice chamfered edge here, and it's got a nice high polish to it, and it really breaks up the case well and just looks really nice. Looks very quality. Circular brushing on top, very nice, and the polishing on the bezel is very nice as well. And actually the polishing on the bracelet is very nice. Satin like brush on here, looks really good. So yeah, finishing wise, there's really nothing bad I can say about it. I think this is probably their best finished watch that I've seen. I think Pagani, they don't do a bad job finishing their watches, but compared to some of these other micro brands from AliExpress, I think Pagani's been sort of on the lower end of the finishing, but they've definitely stepped up their game here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lume, do a wrist shot, and we'll wrap this up. So here is the lume fully charged. Now it's going to be hard to see because it's not fully dark in here, but the lume is not good on this. You can see that the indices are already starting to fade. The hands are glowing brighter than the indices, but yeah, the lume dies out really, really quickly, and it's just not good. They're using some type of regular luminova, definitely not super luminova, and it's just not very well applied. So definitely do not give them any points for the lume. The lume is pretty terrible. There it is on my 7.5 inch wrist, and yeah, as you can see, it definitely could have done with some AR coating, but you know, what are you gonna do? It does look really good though, and it wears really well. Despite the gripes that I had toward this bracelet, it is very comfortable, and you don't hear any rattle once it's on wrist, so definitely pretty nice. I don't really have too many bad things to say about it, except I would have liked to see screw pins and a little bit of a better clasp, but overall it wears really nicely. So definitely take everything I said with a grain of salt, and you know, maybe those things aren't going to matter as much to you as they do to me. Also, since this is a 20mm lug width, you're going to be able to put this on a lot of different straps that you probably have lying around, and it's going to look really good. This is definitely a strap monster. It's a very, very easy watch to pair with a lot of different straps. So overall, what do I think about this watch? Well, I think that Pagani has certainly stepped up their game in terms of finishing. However, there are definitely some areas that I would like to see improvements, specifically the bracelet and the clasp. I do still think it's a good watch for the price though, and if you're looking for that Longines look without the high price tag, then definitely consider this one. But that's going to wrap it up, guys, so go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe button. Also hit the bell icon to be notified when I release a new video. But thanks for tuning in today, guys, and always remember to keep watching out.